Hello out there, TV land, radio land, and all that good stuff out there. Welcome to Champions Are Built. This is Coach Eric Johnson, Coach EJ, the brand.
And this is Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source.
Today, we have a special guest. I've known this person since they've been about 11 and a half, actually. And it's great to see him really impact not only community, but this is a former Major League ball player, played 8 years in the big leagues with 6 teams, the A's, drafted by the A's, the Oakland A's, and played for the Rangers, the Padres, the Cards, Detroit Tigers, and lastly, one of my favorite teams, the Giants, and national team member, his 18th or collegiate national team, and also a Cal product. Soon to be a Cal graduate, as they say, getting his education. I have a lot of respect for this young man. Tyson Ross, what a pleasure to have him here. Ex-Major League player, impact a lot of people in his career and doing great things in the community with the Players Alliance, Aaron. So happy to have this guy and excited. Tyson, welcome.
EJ, Aaron, thank you, man. As you guys know, my relationship with both of you goes back quite a long time, and it's good to see you guys still in the community, still impacting young players and doing things the right way.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I met Tyson, God, when you were maybe middle school?
Yeah, I was probably 6th or 7th grade. You had us running those hills out at Merritt.
Yeah, and Tyson you were a shortstop then.
Yeah.
And he ended up being a major league pitcher. So that's great, man. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're going to drop some knowledge to some of the kids. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about this subject is you have a dynamic that's a little bit different than the average Major League ball player. You've got a brother that also plays in the big leagues. And so you've got a family dynamic that, again, that's different than most. Maybe, and don't you have a sister that also played volleyball at a high level?
Yeah, she was a soccer player.
Soccer player, okay.
Yeah.
And so my question in terms of, champions are built and some of these things that build into people's success is maybe what role did the family play in that? Was there, you hear these stories about Tiger Woods and his dad, and he taking him out early, and all those sorts of things. I mean, what was your upbringing in terms of sports and baseball in particular, and was there any of that type of influence there?
Yeah, so with my family, with the 3 of us, I'm the oldest. Sister's 2 years younger, and then Joe's 6 years younger than me. We just really grew up at the ballpark. I grew up in Oakland, California. I played Oakland Babe Ruth down there on 66th and East 14th, and all day, every day, we were down at the ballpark. During the week, we had team practices, whether it was my team, Frankie's team, or Joe's team. There's some sort of practice going on, and usually, if we didn't have our own practice, we'd kind of tag along. So we were around the game a lot. We were out at parks a lot, just playing, in the front yard, playing, running around, playing strikeout, doing things like that. And so I think just having that ability to not only be playing the sport, you've got the organized practices and games, but then also just to be around, parks and facilities where you're just running wild and having fun and enjoying being a kid. And you're always kicking a ball or throwing a ball, hitting something. I think that's just kind of where we developed our athletic ability. It's just constantly doing something, having fun, and just getting better at different things.
That's really cool because I remember those days, Aaron. I know you do down in Southern California, and we just kind of street kids. Isn't that what you call it, Aaron?
Yeah, I call them neighborhood kids. We were neighborhood kids.
Neighborhood kids. We played, and that's how we loved the game. And it was just, you're in your neighborhood, grab your guys together, let's go play a little bit, And the fact you said your family dynamic, I know your dad very well, and I know the impact that your mom and dad had on all 3 of your guys' careers. I remember my father had that same kind of impact on my career too. So it's neat to hear that there are neighborhood kids and parents out there put in the time and effort with their kids That's got to be pretty special for you, Tyson. And Aaron and I talk about that a lot. But that's pretty cool, man, that you could spend that much time with your family.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was always a soccer game or baseball game to be at, and you just got to have fun. You got to make do with what you got and stay active. I think today kids get so caught up in the travel ball and the constant training that, they kind of forget how to be kids. And, I've been working with a kid doing some pitching lessons, and I'm like, hey, what do you like to do other than pitch and play baseball? And he's like, that's it. You gotta be a well-rounded athlete and just enjoy being a kid, climb some trees, go play touch football in the street, do all sorts of things. And whether or not you realize that you're probably developing yourself as a full athlete by, doing these other activities that you may not think much of as a kid.
So did you have aspirations to be a professional baseball player, or is that kind of something that, developed over time? Or sometimes people just kind of fall into these things. They say, man, I got this talent. Hey, I'm going to run with it. I mean, what's your story on that?
That was always my goal. One of my middle school teachers talks about back when I was in kindergarten, and we used to have to, I think it was part of the graduation process, you had to stand up on stage and tell everyone what you wanted to be when you grew up. And I was saying I wanted to be a baseball player from that early age. So that was always my goal. I never thought about pitching. I just wanted to play the game, and I knew that's what I really loved to do. And I kind of developed into a pitcher later in my career. As a high school junior, I really started pitching a lot, junior and senior year, and then went to Cal. I was supposed to be a two-way player, and then decided to focus on pitching for 3 years, and it paid off. So, I always had that goal in my heart, and I think a lot of young players do, but it's you got to have more than just that dream. You really got to have that drive and determination, and really kind of have the focus to elevate your game year after year so you can achieve it.
So to follow up on that, because when I met you, you were set on being a shortstop. and I get a lot of kids who, at young ages are set on playing a certain position. And, how did you make that transition? Was it hard for you to say, hey, you know what? I really want to be a shortstop, but this pitching thing is kind of calling me. Or did you fight that tooth and nail? You said, hey, look, I don't care where I'm playing on the field. As long as I'm up there, I'll play wherever they want me to play. I mean, how did you make that transition? Was it easy? Was it difficult? Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was a realist, man. I wanted to be a shortstop, and I hit a big growth spurt in high school. And I went from being probably like 5'10" as a freshman to 6'3" later that freshman spring. And there was a junior, senior. There was a shortstop on the team. So I was like, I got to get in where I fit in. You know what I mean? And playing travel ball, I like to play middle infield and a little bit of third base. And I actually played travel ball with Brandon Crawford. So I was like, okay, shortstop's out.
Yeah.
And I tried to move over to third base, and Brett Wallace was over there, who went on to be All-American too. And so I was like, okay, third base is out. Maybe I can be tall at first base for a little bit. But we always needed pitching. So, luckily I was pretty good at that, and good enough to get a college scholarship and go to Cal and really kind of figure out how to pitch at that next level. And that's how I got into it. And I think all that, that drive and desire to be an infielder helped me out when I got to the big leagues, just because I already knew how to field a ground ball and make athletic plays. You get a lot of guys that are pitchers only, and as soon as you get off that mound, you got to make a play. Like, all they know how to do is pitch, and you see some ugly errors out there sometimes. And, so you got to be an athlete first and foremost.
Yeah, that's really cool. Aaron, I saw Tyson. I took Tyson halfway around the world to Beijing, China, playing this tournament when he was a young kid. And man, he was a heck of an athlete. He was. It's amazing to see him transition. He was throwing like a weed, but he was able to do anything on the field. And he was our best player, obviously. But man, it was fun just to watch this guy just develop into a player. And hey, Tyson, I one thing I want to kind of talk about a little bit is this kind of pitcher only thing. And you see this a lot now and out there. And how do you feel about that? I think guys should be playing as many positions as possible. And there's a time and place, right? There's a time and place for that. And I think, as coaches, I go out there and look at it. And I know Aaron and I always talk about this stuff, but don't you think that, when it's ready, when it's time, and don't force it at an early age?
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think the more exposure you get to different aspects of baseball, the better you're going to be. You know, when you're a pitcher that also hits, you understand what hitters see, you know how they react, you know what they're looking for. So you kind of have that two-way knowledge of the game. We used to do this drill even in the major leagues where they'd have us, if you're working on bunt defenses, you would rotate from the mound to catcher to first, second, all the way around the infield. And so you kind of had the perspective of what was happening on the play, where guys are supposed to be. And now you have this 360 understanding of the play, where everyone's going to be, what they're seeing, what the responsibilities are. And if you're a pitcher only, you only have that one perspective growing up. So I think it's important to be able to move around the field. I know there's some high level tournaments where they're like, okay, you're only going to be a pitcher for us this weekend, but you know, get out there, have fun. Everyone makes mistakes, play somewhere you're not comfortable with, and just kind of get a full understanding of baseball.
Awesome. That's good stuff right there. What are, I know, Aaron, go ahead. I know you have some good questions for him.
Tyson, you know, being a professional baseball player is a long road. You know, you've got, you know, obviously you're going through high school, college, and then you still got the minor leagues. How did you navigate that whole system in terms of what motivated you? What were maybe some of the things that you had to transition from high school to college, and from college to the minors, and then from minors to professionals, to the bigs? You know, what kind of maybe mental changes did you have to make? What kind of physical, you know, or tactical changes did you have to make? You know, how did you, again, make those transitions to each level?
Yeah, my journey was not, you know, your typical one. I went to D1 college close to home. I was a weekend starter as a freshman, you know, Friday starter, sophomore, junior year. I was only in the minor leagues for like a year and a half before I was actually one full season before I made my major league debut. But what allowed me to progress that fast was I really was able to just focus on, you know, improving my game. Like, one thing I really realized early on was that if I can maximize my strengths and improve on my weaknesses, that's going to help me level up a lot faster than just saying, okay, this is what I do well, I'm going to just do that. You know, if I had a good slider, I found a way to maximize that slider. But if my fastball command was the thing that was going to hold me back, I said I need to really make sure I work on that, and not just, you know, say I'm okay with the slider, I'm good with it, you know. And so that's the biggest thing that I found in my career, was just like, you gotta work on your weakness and maximize your strengths. And that was technically with baseball skills. That was in the weight room once I started working out seriously. And that's really what as I look back on my career, that's what was the separator, because everyone's good. It's how good am I right now, and how much better can I be tomorrow, and the day after that, and the year after that, and so on and so forth. And that's what keeps you in the game, that keeps you advancing. And I think that's really just the key. You know, I played with a lot of really talented guys as an amateur. Like I said, Brett Wallace, Brendan Crawford. I played with Buster Posey when we were in high school. I played with Clayton Kershaw. Those guys were already the best, but they also got better. They were the best at getting better every year. And so that's why they're still out there doing what they're doing at, you know, in their mid 30s. And it's impressive to see, because, you know, a lot of people fall off. You know, if you're the best 12-year-old, you got to really work to be the best 13, 14, 15-year-old. And when you get to college and pro ball, that's when you actually play with players that are older than you. And it's not just, hey, I'm the biggest and baddest right now. It's like you get to college, you're going to be 18 playing against 21-year-old grown men, and you got to really elevate your game to hang with them.
Yeah. Who are some of you figured that out at a young age, Tyson, that, you know, you had to maximize these things. And who are some of the people that influenced you outside your parents, obviously? Who are some of the players or guys or coaches that influenced you to have this mindset? You know, this is the champion's mindset that you're really talking about. So can you express that a little bit?
Yeah, going back to high school, Lou Ritchie was a basketball coach at Bishop O'Dowd, and I only played basketball 1 year, but he always saw me around campus, and he was like, hey man, you got to get in the weight room, you got to work, everyone's working. And yeah, I wasn't a big weight room guy until I got to college, and I was forced in there, but I heard what he was saying. I understood the message about putting in work. And so every day I was out there, you know, on the baseball field, doing my long toss, getting some swings in the cage, waiting for my dad to get home from work so we could go hit in the garage, doing different things like that. So I understood that it took a lot of work. You know, he played Division I basketball, came back, was coaching at a high level. And then as my journey kind of progressed, you know, I got to Cal as a freshman. Brandon Morrow was the senior. I think he was drafted like 3rd overall that year by the Mariners. And I just got to watch him work every day. And, you know, I learned a lot from him. And, you know, as you go through it, you just find those older players that are really talented, and you just watch and learn and listen. And, you know, if they have something to say to you directly, you absorb it. But if not, you can learn a lot from watching. And, I mean, even going back to my youth, there were always guys ahead of me that I looked up to. Steve Singleton was a guy that I played with at O'Dowd, but he's a couple years older than me. So going back to Oakland Babe Ruth, you know, I played with him, looked up to him. And the guy ahead of him was Johnny Ash, who ended up playing at Stanford, and also an O'Dowd guy. So it was like I had this lineage to follow of people from Oakland Babe Ruth that then went to Bishop O'Dowd and excelled at that high school level, and then went on to play Division I baseball. And that was kind of the follow the leader game that I was playing. I was following those guys, and then Joe saw me doing what I was doing, and he followed me. So it's kind of like you got to have those people that you're close with that you can look up to, learn from. And that's how I knew playing Division I was a possibility for me, just because I knew Johnny did it, I knew Steve did it, I knew I had the ability, and I just had to put in the work so I could make that a reality.
I like that. I like the term you use, lineage, you know, and how you were able to get yourself around people. Maybe it's just by happenstance. I know you guys are all from the same, all from Oakland, went to all high school, same high school and everything. But I think that's important. I think if kids can get themselves around that lineage and they see that mindset and the success of those people in front of them being repeated over and over again, I think it's a lot easier to buy into a lot of the things that you're talking about, you know, doing the hard work and the discipline and all those things that contributed to your success. So I like that word. I like that lineage.
And that's amazing. I know Steve and I know Johnny, and they're extremely hard workers. And Steve's still in the game, and it's fun to see that Oakland vibe, you know, and that there's a lot of good baseball players, a lot of good people in Oakland that do a great job. So that's awesome. Good to see that. Hey, tell me a little bit about, you know, maybe your mental approach as a athlete. Where did that really change? Where did it start? Where did it change? You know, Aaron and I talked about the mental approach with young people, young athletes ourselves when we were playing athletics. Tell me a little bit about kind of like your mental approach. Where did that start, man? Where'd you get your beginnings? Where's your base from, your foundation?
Yeah, it's actually funny. Alan Yeager, way back when, probably 2002, 2003, used to come up from SoCal and help us. I played travel ball for NorCal, and he used to come out in the fall, and we'd do breath work, we'd do banded stuff. And I remember laying there in the outfield grass, and like I was probably falling asleep, and I was like, I don't know what we're doing down here. But that was my first experience with the mental side of baseball, and just, you know, understanding your breath and things like that. And then fast forward all the way till I get to pro ball, and I realized, like, okay, that stuff's actually pretty important. And I think the biggest thing for me was always about having a routine that allowed me to have confidence in what I was going to do on the field. So I was big on preparation. You know, I was a starter for the most part of my career, and I knew if I put in the work the 4 days leading up to the game, all I had to do game day is go out there, execute the plan, and have fun. And so I was a really hard worker. You know, I put in the time in the weight room, doing the arm care, you know, scouting reports, all that kind of stuff, so that when it came time to game time, there was nothing to be nervous about. It was just go play this game that you've been preparing for the last 4 days. So that's how I treated things. And yeah, I mean, it worked well in my career. I think just having the ability to know that I've done everything to prepare for this moment to go out here and play. The results are going to be what the results are, but I never wanted to step out on the mound and think like, man, I'm not ready for this physically or mentally, because, you know, I just didn't put in the work yet.
Just to mention, we actually are having Alan Jaeger and Rob Bruno, two of the people you mentioned, cool. On this series. So yeah, you're in good company. Awesome. You mentioned a name that I've got to get to, Johnny Ash, because Johnny was something special too. But I want to fast forward. Okay, we've talked about your career, and now you're on the other side of that. And as you mentioned, you're working with a young man doing some pitching instruction. And what do you see is the difference between kids now and maybe when you were growing up? Because I'll tell you something. There was an era with all you guys who, you know, me and EJ have worked with, Brandon Crawford, Brett Wallace, yourself, your brother, that was, I'm almost looking back at that as, that was kind of a special era. You guys had a certain way about you guys that I'm not seeing nowadays. And maybe I'm just, you know, the old guy who's saying, oh, you know, things where they used to be. I don't know. But you're now on the other side, and you're starting to, you know, work with these young athletes today. And what are you seeing? Are there commonalities? Are there not? Are there different ways that maybe you have to approach in working with them that wasn't done with you? I mean, give me your feedback on that.
You know, I think it's really interesting. I've only worked with a few guys, but I think now there's just so much information out there. You know, like you can get on Instagram and you get 15 different pitching tips immediately, and you never really go to work on it yourself and figure out what works for you. So like when I was growing up, like I just had to figure out what was going to work for me. Like what did I need to do to throw the ball harder? How did I need to load up or turn or coil or whatever it may be to have a better result? And I think kids now want really want like that, those instantaneous results. Everything's being measured, everyone's being ranked, and you want to be better right now or yesterday, but you're not willing to try something new to see what's going to maximize individual potential. And, you know, getting to the highest level, I've realized everyone has a different path. Everyone has a different thing that they're really good at that allows them to be really good. And you just have to find that within yourself and develop that skill and work on your weakness. But I think it's really just, you know, when you look online, it's like, hey, Driveline says you got to throw these weighted balls and that's going to make you throw 95. Like all of a sudden it puts everyone in this funnel track, and the guys that it works for, and the other guys just get left behind without finding out like, hey man, maybe that's not for me. Like, let me build in some self-awareness and see what works for me as an athlete. And that's what you really got to develop. And I think working with the kid that I've been working with recently, it's like, I haven't really been working with mechanics or anything like that. I'm just like, hey man, I'm gonna give you a couple different athletic drills to do while you're throwing a baseball and tell me what feels good and what doesn't. And let's just kind of figure out what works for you, what builds your awareness on what's creating your misses and what happens good when you're executing pitches. And you know, he's really receptive to that. He's a quick learner. It's really impressive to see. And I think it's probably something that no one's ever worked on with him. And he's been taken to it. So I'm happy to keep working with him as long as he's finding value in it and he's like part of the process. And that's what I want to do, is just allow him to be his own best coach. Because ultimately I tell him like, hey man, we meet up every other week or whatever, but when you're on the mound, it's just you got to know how to get yourself back on track. You got to know how to believe in yourself. And most of the time, you probably just got to stop thinking and just tap into your athleticism and let it work. And that's something that I don't think kids really know how to do yet, because they're so technical, you know, worrying about launch angles or spin rates and all this stuff. And I'm like, hey man, like if you move better, your spin's going to be better. Like it's just simple. If you just be an athlete and find the way to move as best as possible, and then the numbers and the results will happen. But I think kids get overloaded with info to try and create things, you know, get to the end of the finish line before they go through the race.
Boy, we've had that conversation so many times. Boy, you're going to do our next commercial.
Oh, man.
we talk about that all the time. And, you know, you talk about self-awareness and just being an athlete and kind of finding your own art and rhythm to what you're doing. That's exactly how we feel. And, you know, we talk about the internet actually interrupts a lot of that for us as coaches. So you're seeing the same things, I guess, we are.
That's awesome, man. He said those key things again, Aaron. You know, you mentioned self-awareness, but part of the process, be your own best coach, be an athlete. Man, that is just like, you know, we just repeat these things. That's so cool to see that come apart. I think, you know, especially coming from you, Tyson, you know, who's been in the big leagues, who's had success, who's been through the whole process. That's pretty cool to hear, Aaron. I think that's pretty special. We love hearing that, and you definitely can do our next commercial.
Yeah, he looks a lot better too. No gray hair.
I got some, man. It's a good camera angle right now, I think.
I love it, man. Love it. That's a pleasure. That's good stuff. Hey, can you tell us a little bit about I'm gonna plug you on this one, man. Loyal to the soil, man. I think what you're doing is awesome, and I want to be part of it. I've just been on the road all the time, but can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now with Loyal to the Soil? Because I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, so I created this program in the 2020 season after opting out. I was sitting at home, had a lot of thinking to do and a lot of time on my hands. And, I realized like one of the biggest reasons I was able to achieve the things that I did in the game of baseball was because of where I came from and that lineage that I spoke about earlier, having a community that really, helped me develop as a player and a person, and having guys like Steve Singleton and Johnny Ash to follow in their footsteps. And I know, baseball in Oakland's really kind of dying off and the numbers are down. And so I wanted to find a way to create a program that helps bring the game back to the inner city. And so that's what the Loyal to My Soil program is all about. We put on free camps for inner city youth and just try and bring out a bunch of current and former pros from the area to give that instruction. So you're able to go to a free baseball camp. You're able to learn from people like myself, Joe. We're going to have Marcus Simeon out there in the future. Vita Blue came out, Shooty Babbitt, Dip Roberts. We got all these guys. Long list of achievements as individuals, but the main thing that's important is that we're all from the Bay and we all have a lot to learn or to share and help you learn as players. So putting on free camps and just trying to get guys interested in baseball and learn from people and inspire them to realize, hey, I'm not going to be the first one from this community that's going to make something in the game of baseball. And the people that actually really care a lot to come back and teach us, what they know from those high levels of baseball.
Well, it's great. It's great what you're doing. And I respect you so much for doing that, because I get lost in translation, a lot of stuff, and you seeing that forthright and doing a great job of that. So continued success. And like I said, you're doing a great job over there and helping a lot of kids who need an opportunity to get out there and get some good coaching, but some good mentoring. And I think that's important, that you're mentoring these young people and showing them there's many ways to be successful in life. Pretty cool.
Thank you.
Great deal. Hey, it was a pleasure having you on today, man. It's been a long time since I've seen you, but you look great, man. I've always watched you on TV and followed you, so I'm glad to see that you're still doing your thing and you're helping the kids, and that's great to see. It really is, because the Bay Area, Oakland particularly, needs that.
Yeah. So Tyson, thanks again for being here. Thanks for being on another edition of Champions Are Built, and continued success to you. Aaron, like I said, this is Coach EJ, the brand.
And this is Coach Aaron, the Source. We'll see you.